practices throughout the course to continue memorizing, refreshing our memorizing, because if you don't memorize, then you have to look stuff up all the time. And the next thing you know, you're slower than molasses on a cold winter's day. And we want you to be able to read Sanskrit as a language instead of reading it as, math, where you have to do math. You have to get out a chart and figure out the mathematical equation just to read a word. I'm causing you to internalize these, not because it's absolutely essential that you can spit them out every time, but so that you have the neural pathways formed that you can recognize them quickly. And as I'll talk in a minute about memorization a little bit more, so you'll be ready for the real thing that happens, which is you memorize something, you forget it, then you memorize it again, and you forget most of it, and then you're reading right along and you see something very clearly from something you memorized, and then boom, it's in the computer and you got it forever. But you have to do the memorizing to get to that point. Okay, so before we move into the memorization session of the day, we need to, do I have anybody wanting to talk to me in chat? Okay, Tessa's got it all figured out. I want to point out a few little tweaky things. Now, I was unaware of this thing, this external sandhi in words. Now, this, I put a link, I sent it to you in an announcement, and I put a link on the front page of today where we have, which is 8.1 synchronous. Now, let me share my screen for a second to show you why this is so valuable. What are you? Huh? My Adobe quit. Drat. Hold on. You will not quit. You will do the job correctly. Can you see the screen? My screen sharing is paused. Stop share. Start share. There we go. Okay. So if you're looking here, you'll see that you'll have a statement like final, ka, pa. And then you have the environment where it's like before an unvoiced consonant. And then it tells you what happens. No change. And then you have an example over here and sort of tiny little like formulas. Now, the funny thing about this is I usually tell students, this is a fantastic resource that I look forward to distributing, but I usually tell students, this is exactly what you need to do on your own. And I don't have it with me. I wish I did, but I got like I got a hardback like journal when I was first learning Sanskrit, and I would write out all the paradigms, and I would write out all these little sandhi rules, and I would use different colors to color code them, and I just kept a running thing where I built my own little Sanskrit manual. And I've advised other people to do this over the years of teaching and learning Sanskrit, and it becomes really useful because it's in your own language. It's not like you're copying what Goldman says in his words. It's, you're like, okay, I understand this now. And then the other thing is, it's not like your notes. What you do is you try to figure it out in your notes, and then you look it up in the book until once you really have it figured out, only then do you write it in your own little handbook. And when you write it in that own little handbook, you'll be able to find it in that little handbook way quicker than you can find it in your notes, or than you can find it in Goldman. I had a little session with the other students on Monday, and I'm like, there's this rule that does this. And they're like, is that in Goldman? I'm like, yes, but it'll take me 4 minutes to find at least, because Goldman is hard to navigate. I'll talk more about that in a second. So looking more at these rules, let's say you have a ha at the end of a sentence or phrase. That becomes or remains ha or ra, and there's your example. However, if your ha is before an unvoiced velar, labial, or sibilant, these are linguistic terms that Goldman uses. You can look them up or you can Google them. You'll figure it out. Becomes or remains a ha. And there's your example. A little ha or the little s before a ka will become still a ha or a ka. This is actually really comprehensive. So I had one student recently say, I can't finish this sandhi sheet. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I realized that's because that student was looking up all the rules in Goldman or in the notes, trying to remember, or looking up in the PowerPoint or Goldman, trying to figure out. It's like, well, when does this one nasal connect with the other? What you need is you need to either have a cheat sheet like this one or write your own. Ideally, write your own cheat sheet. But you look, you're on down here. Oh, vowels, short or loud, short or long, and this is cool, short or long before an unlike vowel, because you have before the same vowel here. Short or long combined, as long as Chuck does this. Then, sorry, there's someone coming to my door. I'll be right back. So, yeah, we've contacted many times. Great. Okay. Great. I'm pretty sure that the gas goes across there from when they did this before, but I bet they have it on that side too. Okay. Sure. And I think you'll probably overhead. Great. Okay, that's fantastic. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Sorry, I'm teaching a class right now. Take care. The guy is coming to mark on my property where there are buried power lines, which is great considering I already planted the trees because they did not come out in the last 2 weeks. Well, whatever. I hope I put my trees in the right spot. Anyway, so this is a great little cheat sheet. Also, you'll notice over here, when I did in the PowerPoints, I like blocked off things for voiced and unvoiced. Notice here as well, what's valuable? You can see the shape. So you can almost like visualize like the alphabet in the images we've seen and see the shapes that are voiced and unvoiced. And honestly, if you memorize the shapes, you'll do better than anything. Now, when we come to memorizing declensions later this week, I'm going to show you how I code them in colors. So one way to do this is to make this symbol to set up for yourself, then copy it, and then put all the voiced ones, for instance, over here in red and leave the other ones in black. Do the same thing here, but put all the voiced, unvoiced ones in green. That way you can see the shapes. Here you have our homoorganic sounds, the stops, the nasals, and whatnot. So remember, homoorganic means the same place in the mouth, vowel strengthening, and guna and vritti. See, this is a nice little thing. I wish I knew it was there. I would have told you to use it sooner. Thank you to Tessa and Tanya and who else was there? Rebecca, who showed me this thing that I just missed amongst one of Dr. Williams' many pages. For all Dr. Williams does, and he does so much, his canvas is perfectly intuitive to him, but it's not to me. And his label system on worksheets is not terribly clear. But why should they be? He's been running this show a long time on his own. So this is really helpful. And if you wanted to study, what I would highly recommend you do is you take, say, this here, and what are I going to do here? Well, let me see if I can go open. Make sure this guy doesn't need me for anything. Images, documents. Where's my handout? All right. So here's our Sunday grid, the deadly Sunday grid. Let me quick rotate it. Rotate it. I told you to rotate. All right. So we're looking at our Sunday grid. Now, Sunday worksheet number, answer key, number whatever. Can y'all pull that out? I don't want to toggle between too many screens right now. Look at your Sunday worksheet 2, or you can look at the original. But let's just go right down to number 8, which the final version is Muni, long E, Ragnas Tattvam Pravyahara. Well, what was the original? Let me look at the original. I don't know if I have the original handy here. I got it around here somewhere. But I know what that is. You'd have... Look at me being unorganized. Anyway, somebody read to me what the original was on number 8. It's Muniz.
Muni, Rajna,
Yeah.
Patvam,
Mm-hmm.
Pravya Harat.
Okay, so you start with Munis first here. You see, this is for long AH. Can you see my cursor? Long AH. This is short AH. Remember that those are all and then a sa with a virama. Long and the sa and a virama. So any vowel plus ha'ora, so non-AH here. So we have munihi. All right, so I know that that is any vowel plus the ha. So I'm in this thing. Now, what comes before that? Ra. Okay, so now I go over here and I go blah, 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 blah. Ra. Ra goes over, over, over. What? Zero? Why does it say zero? Well, there's a little footnote here. Here, the ha or ra disappears. And if e, or u precedes the ha, it lengthens to long long e, or u. Why is that? This is where you have to think back to Goldman. Now, from doing this, we know we go munihi plus ragna becomes muni, long e, the visarga drops, but ra and ra do not go together in Sanskrit. So the ra, in fact, drops. And because the ra drops, the e, that long I, strengthens. Where have we seen this before? Well, we've sure as heck seen it in Goldman, where he talks about how double ra is not allowed, and that causes complications to occur. Now, where is it in Goldman? I don't know. It's in here. I remember the example. It's Muni Hirochiti. So let me look at the example. Where's Muni? Oh, I'm at the beginning of the chapter. It's gotta be somewhere in. This is what Goldman sucks for, looking stuff up. It's really good to read through, but it just stinks. So instead, we can go over here to our, where'd my external review go? Tell me I didn't just accidentally close it. Yes, I did. Someday I'll figure out how to use my computer. Okay, so you're here. All right, so now I've got a visarga, ihihi. All right, ihihi, before a voiced consonant. Is ra voiced? Sure as heck is. So it becomes IR, etc. Uh-oh, before double R, double ra is avoided. So the ha or ra there drops and the preceding short vowel is lengthened. So what do you have here? You have a cheat sheet. I would almost recommend writing this out in your own handwriting, just so it's really clear to you. So that's how you should use a Sunday grade. If we take another example, let's say, again, give me another. Somebody give me another example. Wherever those things are.
I have one. Let's see.
Yes.
Hold on. I had it. How about number? Thought I had one. Well, this is the exception. The one with saw as a pronoun. That's not going to be on here, probably.
That's not going to be on there. You just have to remember that saha with an aspiration is a pronoun, and so it drops. Okay,
so number 13.
Number 13.
All right. You got the special punar thing. But that wasn't the one I wanted to go over. I wanted to ask you about T plus BH.
All right. So there we have buddhi manam plus tum plus tyajati plus ye. Wait, am I looking at the right one? Mm. Which one did you want to look at?
Sorry, I was looking at the answer key for 13, but I'm not.
Oh, for 13. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Panditan plus jara. Now we know, yeah, let's look at panditan. So that was just a straight un or a ma, but if it's an ending ma, that's not going to happen. So ending na for panditan, many pundits. Then you have a ja. Well, there's ja. So I come across and I go, oh, It's that nya, 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 na. Now, the thing is, you can just write that down and that's your answer, and you won't learn Sunday. You have to stop and go, okay, wait, what's the rule? So that's where you can come back here and say, I have an ending nya. So and it is before a voiced palatal. So before voiced palatal, which is what? Is ra. No, not, yeah, becomes nya. So na plus ja equals nya ja. See how that works? So by using the Sunday grid, you can jog your memory, but you're not really going to learn Sunday unless you take that second step and look up the actual rule. Then it'll get in your head. If you just use it as a chart, then you will never escape the chart. It will slow way down and you'll never really be able to read Sanskrit. So that was my little review of how to use the Sunday charts. Now, I will give you 5 minutes and I will go over any example from the reading or from the Sunday chart, and then we're going to move on. Not from the Sunday chart, but for the quiz, from our worksheet.
I have another question. Go ahead, Tanya.
That wasn't me.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, this is Riley. Could we go over the second one on the back? Katrin.
Second one on the back. It starts kastri, kahatri.
Yes.
All right.
That one.
So I'm doing it in reverse and breaking the Sundays as I read. So there you have kaha plus trin plus lokan plus abhi, or is it nabhi or abhi bhavishyati? You'll have to tell me. I don't have the original in front of me.
What?
Is it abhi bhavishyati as the last phrase?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. All right, good. I can break those on my own. So the first thing we do, and I'll explain it to you and then I can demonstrate on the chart if you would like, Riley. So first thing we do is we look at our guy and we go, where was it? I lost my place. Okay. Kaha plus ta. Well, ta is unvoiced, right? So that becomes, so aha, a plus aha, kas plus ta, or tree. This is hard because I have to think through it in a couple of different ways. So it's kus plus treen, correct or not?
Correct.
Yes.
So you go kus, so plus or short us plus ta equals us. Why?
Shouldn't it be a short A, not a long A?
I think it should be a long A. I need to see the original to be able to think it straight. So it should be a short my rule is wrong written there. So because it's a ta and it encounters a ta, that's in that set of vargas, the cha, the ka, the retroflex, and the dental ta. When it encounters a initial non-voiced in that center or in that class, the visarga shifts to the sibilant of that same class. So if you look on your Goldman chart on page 13, you would look at ta and trace all the way to the right, and you would see sa, dental sa. So when you have kus, you insert or you change the s to straight up s. There's actually no change because it's already kind of in the dental class. Moving from there, you have treen plus lokan. There, treen, your nasal long for 3, hits L. So that's our slutty little na once again. Our nasal sees the la, likes the la so much it turns into a la itself, and then the la looks at that la and says, I'm going to get me with that la. So then you move forward to to trin, lokan. Then you have abibivishyati. Now, when you have a regular na plus a short vowel here, and after a short vowel here also, then what happens? It doubles and becomes na. So short vowels equal double nasals. That doesn't follow a short vowel though. That's lokan. So maybe it should be regular now that I look at it. Where is the original? What do I get? This is what I get. All these stupid recipes. I have my answer key all over the place, but I can't find the original to save my life. That's very me. Okay, that's gonna have to be what it is. Next question. I got time for one more.
So that shouldn't be a long A on there, right? On
Yep.
that.
Here we go. Okay.
It
Once
should
again.
or it should not be long A.
Yes, that should not be a long A.
Okay, thank you.
Now I can see it. So
Okay.
kaha plus ta. The kaha turns into sa. Why does it become sa? Because sa corresponds to the ta. So kash, so it becomes kas trin. Trin plus la means the na becomes anuswara. Trim plus lokan. Then you have un. So na plus a na. Then we'll look here on the Sandhi chart. Plus an initial vowel. Initial vowel here equals na or double na. 3. The doubling occurs when the preceding vowel is short. What does that mean? That means Dr. Ulrich fucked up. It should be a single na, not a double na. So that's my bad right there. So if it was lokun, but that wouldn't mean anything, then it would be a double or a double na, but it isn't. So in fact, you only have 2 sandhis here. Kas plus trin becomes kastrin. Trin plus lokan becomes trin lokan. And then the na should just attach to the They should just be combined. So lokan abibavishyati. Meaning those who aspire outward or meaning, actually, no, who will attain the threefold world is what that verse means. All right, let's do one more. Sorry about that one, y'all. Correct that.
Can I ask a question that's hopefully not taking up the one more space because I feel like it's simple?
Simple questions are the best ones.
Number 2 for Bodhicitta.
Yeah.
In the answer key, you wrote simple Sandhi. Like, why do those combine at all?
Because there's nothing at the end of it. And what you would in fact see is this is a word that means something like dividing a word. Pada means word and dividing. So if it doesn't have any specific ending, like this doesn't have an so it doesn't have it doesn't have anything on it. So that means it would combine with the word that follows it into a compound. What is it? So really the problem that a lot of you are having that gets resolved when you've read more is when to join words. And what you'll see is the only times you don't join words is when they have a visarga, a final anuswara, or at the end of a word, or at the end of a sentence, or there's already been sandhis. Like you go swarga indra becomes swarga indra, and then you don't do another sandhi. So you apply sandhi once, and if they aren't readily connecting with homoorganic sounds, then they don't join. Is that?
And vowels and consonants don't mix as well, right? You can't mix a vowel and a consonant. if the
You
vowel
mean,
is
well,
the-
you can, in fact. So if it ends anushtup and the next word is abivati, then you would write anuštupivati.
well, I mean, but with the vowel coming first, you can't connect it, right? You can't make sandhi
Well,
with consonants don't mix with the
Right,
vowel.
because the vowel is already an
No,
acceptable
because-
absolute final.
well, if you have a consonant, let's look back at the Sandhi grid here. Here are your permitted finals at the end of a word. So you have vak, right? There's your consonant. Ka, in fact, will end when it touches a vowel, becomes ga. That's why vag abava, no speech. Vak abava becomes vagbava, no speech. So what you're not seeing yet at this point is the way words end. And if you look into your Goldman textbook, just at the dictionary in the back, you'll notice that just looking at the ends of the words are like ta or da or a visarga or a sa, or but most of them end with just an or an anuswara. So some of these like speculative ones that I think you're bringing up, which are great questions, they just don't happen because that's not the nature of the language.
Okay,
And
so if a vowel is in a final position, like
Yeah.
a, and it connects with a consonant ka, would that work? Would it create
No,
a
because no,
right?
yeah, no, because of the vowels in the final position, if it's like vano or like
Yeah.
ramo vanam gachati, those do not connect.
So if the vowel's in a final position, it cannot connect with a consonant, right? It cannot perform sandhi with a consonant.
If it is in the final position, but you're at this point, you're not going to be sure if it's in a final position or not. So if it is out of visarga dropped, then it doesn't join because you don't do sandhi twice. So in ramo vanam, it's actually ramas vanam. When you see the sa drop, that means no more connection. That sa turns into an o. So the reason that ramo does not connect to vanam is not because o and va can't go together, but because there's been a sandhi that's happened, so you don't do more sandhi.
Okay, Dr. Ulrich, on that one, it is pada cheetah, and on this rule, it says that short a before a ch becomes a cch, and the
Oh
David-
yeah, there's that rule.
Devanagari shows just a ch, not a cch. So
Well, there you go. I told you, sandhi is one of the things I'm worst at.
no, so it should be cch then. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
That
Okay.
sounds right to me.
Okay.
Let's
Thank
take a look. Let's go. All right. So we've got
Right.
short
Right there.
short yeah, short before a simple vowel is just going to combine. However, before a cha, the cha becomes doubled. So right, yeah, that's just a straight up rule. Cha, cha, cha. So there you would remember short vowel or long vowel plus a cha means that short or long vowel remains. There's no change to it, but the cha is doubled. So there's your rule. You'd write that out and go, oh, all right, now I'll remember that. So the reason why these are so kooky for me is because I would just look at pada double cha cheta and think, oh, that's pada cheta. I wouldn't even think twice about it. So this is what will happen in time is it's not really that your sandhi gets better, but you can't articulate it as well because your brain just has the patterns all built in. Okay, any other questions for the exam? And I will go very carefully over the few I select to make sure I don't steer you wrong. Saskia, what are you confused by?
There was some question before that you were doing and you were describing it and then got lost and went back and it kind of just all went together for me.
That's the nature of Sanskrit. You've just described how it goes. You look at it and it's all error signal. And then you think it through and you go, I still don't get it. And then suddenly it clicks and you go, oh, that's what that is. Sometimes after years at a time, you'll see a conditional verb and you're like, I memorized conditional verbs at one point. That's clearly a conditional verb. Oh, that's how it connects with a double accusative. Fascinating. So these things sort of happen. All right, so the next thing to let you know is I've installed the final module on Canvas. And that one, it's extra Sanskrit resources. There, I've got a whole set of resources on Sunday. You can look up Sunday in a couple of different resources. I've got the page numbers for you there, if that's helpful. Now, I'm going to do the same for each chapter, where I will give you the pages from other resources that you can look at. And if I can find some time, I'll just extract them so you can just have them in quick, easy PDFs there. The goal here, I find, and I found this when I was first studying Sanskrit, and I still do this, is I read Goldman, then I read like Whitney, then I'd read, back when I was reading, then I would read Hart, and then I might look at Spire, and then I go back and look at Goldman, and Goldman invariably does this. You're like, I don't understand what you're saying. Then you read it described by 3 other people, and suddenly it makes sense. What I have managed to acquire recently, because you no longer have to live in the world of print text, I've got an e-text of this by A.M. Rappel. This is the new kind of hot stuff Cambridge Introduction to Sanskrit that a lot of people are using. I find the text to be significantly easier to understand, but nowhere near as comprehensive. That's the thing with Goldman. Once you figure Goldman out, you go back and read it and you go, oh, it's all there. Here, you're dancing between many chapters. Goldman has a concision. I also was able to dig up this morning this one, Maurer, as an e-text. This came out in the 90s. This is probably the most comprehensive Sanskrit text around, but it's big and unwieldy. And I believe it has, how many lessons? Goldman has 20 chapters. This one has 32. Whew. That's a lot. It's a lot of chapters. They start out small and they get really long. So Atlas is restarting his computer. You'll be able to catch up and anything you missed because it'll be on the video, Atlas. All right, so now we need to start working on chapter 4. If we get to the end of class to the point where I want to be, I will answer more questions on Sunday. So let's get going. Here is our magical PowerPoint. Where is my magical PowerPoint? Ah, there we go. All right. Everybody can see? All right. Get this off. Get this off. Okay. Today, we're going to be starting to talk about nouns and verbs, primarily verbs in a Sanskrit sentence. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this chart. Now, I'm going to explain all the details of the chart, but I want you first off to repeat after me, because we are going to be conjugating a word. Conjugation is what you do with a noun or with a verb in order to put it into first, second, or third case. Singular, second, singular, dual, plural is how you would think of it in English. So here I'm saying that wrong. That's one person, 2 people, 3 or more people. Pratama, we would think of this as third person. In Sanskrit, it's first person. I'll talk about that in a minute. Pratama means first. Vadati, he speaks. Madhyama, middle. You speak. Uttama, vadami. That means I speak. So going across, vadati, he speaks. Vadataha, those 2 speak. Vadanti, they speak. Vadasi, middle, you speak. Vadataha, meaning dual, middle, so you 2 speak. Vadataha, or vadata, all you speak. Finally, at the bottom, the uttama form, or as they call it, the last form, would be what we call the first form. Vadami, I speak. Vadawaha, we speak, the 2 of us. Vadamaha, we, the many, speak. Now, you are going to learn verbs. These are all in the present indicative sense. That means that they're in the present tense, they're happening right now. Indicative means it's describing something. It's not doing anything other than describing something that happened. This first one is in the parasmaipada. That means it is a verb that does something to another, theoretically. It actually has no meaning whatsoever in the Sanskrit we're studying, only in ancient Vedic. Down here, we have bash. So here's the root, bash, to speak, vad, to speak. Both of these mean to speak. Bash, you may have heard the Hindi word basha or language. Bash, that's our root. Now, following the same pattern, singular, dual, plural. Pratamaha, that's the he, she, or it. Madhyama, you or you too, or you all. Uttama, the final is I, we, all of us. So following that, pashate, he speaks. Pashete, those two speak. Pashete, yeah. Wait a minute. No, pratama is they. So yeah, those two speak. Bashante is they all speak or they speak. Bashante. Remembering, noticing, te, ete, ante. Those are the endings that you're going to learn just in time. Bashase, you speak. Madhyama means the you form. Bashete. Bashete means you too speak. Bashadve, you all, you three speak. You can think you one, you two, you three speak. Bashase, I speak. I one speak. Bashavahe. Notice that one's a lot longer. We too speak. Bashamahe. They, all of us speak. Notice maha, maha. Here it's just maha, and here it's mahe. Here it's vahe, here it's va. Here it's ami, here it's she. It's short there. Up here it's ti, up here it's te. Taha, ete, that's not helping you. But vadanti, bashante. So there you know that you have that strengthened unt. Bashase, vadasi. Okay, I can see those together. Vadataha, varete. Oh, okay. All right. The tas, the express tas. That's helpful. Vadata, vashadve. All right. I'm on my own on that one. So we're going to look at those patterns some more. This is just to warm you up. So for just a minute or two here, I'm going to chant through these. And the minute you get the chance, I want you to start chanting along. Because some of your homework is going to be to just chant this for 10 minutes a day, 2 or 3 times a day if possible. And trust me, this will be the beginning of our memorization pattern. And I shit you not, the more you do this, the better you will get at memorization. If even I got okay at it with my neuroatypicality, you all can do it too. So, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadawaha, vadamaha, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadameha. See, notice I'm trying to like hit the does and the tuz differently and really strengthen out those sounds when they're long. Vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadava, vadamaha, vadati, vadata, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadava, vadamaha, vadati, vadata, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, vadati, vadataha, vadatanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, One of the ways that happens with me is I get a rhythm, and that's when it starts getting easier to memorize these things. Vadati, vadataha, vadanti. Vadasi, vadataha, vadata. Vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha. Vadati, vadataha, vadanti. Vadasi, vadataha, vadata. Vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha. Vadati, vadataha, vadanti. Vadasi, vadataha, vadata. Vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha. Varati varataha varanti, varasi varataha varata, varami varavaha varamaha, varati varata varanti, varasi varataha varata, varami varavaha varamaha, varati varata varanti, varasi varataha varata, varami varavaha varamaha, varati varata varanti, varasi varataha varata, varami varavaha varama. Varati varata vadanti, varasa varataha varata, varami varavaha varama, varati varataha varanti, varasi varataha varata, varami varavaha varamaha, varati varataha varata. So you get into your own rhythm. I mean, there are ways that are like traditional rhythms, but don't worry about it. Just get it in your head. So now we're going to do the Atmanepada, which is a different type of voice. It doesn't matter. What you just have to know is that some verbs are often in the Parsmaipada, others are in the Atmanepada. Is there a rhyme or reason of it? Not really. And some of them are conjugated in both. But we get started again. Bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadre, bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe, bashate, bashete, bashante, badase, badase, badashete, badas, bahasadve, bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe, bashate, bashete, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadve, bashase, bashavahe, bashamahe, bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadwe, bashase, or bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe, bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadwe, bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe, bashate, bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadwe, bashase, or bashe, gotta get it right, bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe, bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadwe, bashe, bashavahe, bashame. See, I want to say shasha because your mouth wants to do that, but bashase, that's madhyama. It's bashe. Honestly, I'll tell you, the Parsmaipada are easier for me to do than the Atmanepada. And I don't know why Goldman insists on choosing an example with a sh in the middle of it, other than it's getting your mouth used to doing things that Sanskrit does often. Bashate, bashete, bashante. Bashase, bashete, bashadwe. Bashase, bashave, bashamahe. Bashate, bashete, bashante. Bashase, bashete, bashadwe. Bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe. Bashate, bashete, bashante. Bashase, bashasete, bashadwe. Bashase, bashavahe, bashamahe. Bashate, bashete, bashanti. Bashante. Bashase, bashete, bashadwe. Bashase, bashavahe, bashamahe. Bashate, bashete, bashante. Bashase, bashete, bashadwe. Bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe. Okay, so we're going to have a couple of paradigms like this for different nouns and different declensions every week. And it's up to you to really keep up on them. But remember, I'm going to quiz you on these. So next week, our quiz is going to be on this. I want you to have this memorized. That will completely be our quiz. It will probably be to just write out in Devanagari these 18 words. in the right order. Okay. So we're moving right along. Now, on to Sanskrit. Okay. I like this picture of a young Nepali Sanskritist training in Sanskrit. It's beautiful to me. I can imagine my own Sanskrit teacher first doing this. So how I like to teach Sanskrit and how the sequence of Goldman works is first we're going to learn about grammar concepts in Sanskrit. So I'll explain an idea in Sanskrit to you. Next, I'm going to look for an English equivalent to kind of nuance our understanding of how it works in English. The interesting thing about Sanskrit is if you don't know English grammar really well, and no one really does unless they've studied a bunch of other languages than English, you're going to have to learn it here. But that having to learn it is a blessing, because you may have had a smarmy English 7th grade teacher yelling at you about adjectives and adverbs. You're like, how do you keep track? And once you understand it in Sanskrit, suddenly it will make sense in English. And anytime someone asks you a grammar question from here on out, you will destroy them, because Sanskrit will allow you to conceive of grammar in an even more rich, knowing, and meaningful way than you have before. So third, we're going to look at concepts in practice. We're going to think through the examples in Goldman. Fourth, we're going to memorize tables that include conjunctions and declensions. And fifth, at the end of every chapter, we're going to apply by translating and reading. That's what we're going to do. So when we're dealing with big bad Bob Goldman, to which I will once again say, and I'll even put on a Nepali accent, just remember, Goldman is old man, as Stanishvar used to say, and shake his head, and we'd laugh at him because he was delightful. And then he'd like nuance something in Goldman that wasn't quite right because of this and that, but it's still like, learn your Goldman. You were not trained at a very young age to do Sanskrit. So we're going to find in Goldman that he'll give indigenous grammar terms in Sanskrit. Why do you need to learn these? Because if you wander to India and you're studying with a pundit, you're like, is that in the accusative sense? They'll say, no, it's in the Dvitiya, the second. They won't know what you mean by accusative. What about the, is this in the present tense? And they'll know. They'll say, no, it's in the Vartmane Lut. So you need to learn these terms. Don't go whole hog on them too hard, but you need to know them in case you're going to study with indigenous pundits. All right, we're also going to get philological terms, words in English. Philos logos, which means like a knowledge into an inquiry into meaning and words. These are mostly derived from Greek and Latin. Traditionally, if you wanted to study Sanskrit, you would have to study Greek. Just so you would have the grammatical concepts to be able to learn Sanskrit. My own PhD advisor, when he was studying in France in the 70s, it was required to study Sanskrit that you have Greek. So he has 3 years of Greek under his belt. Okay, Goldman is bewildering. I know you've read his chapters and you're like, what the heck is going on? And he really is bewildering until he stops. And Ben and I have discussed this because we're big Goldman heads. I like reading Goldman. Goldman actually makes sense to me. He's not great for looking up Sunday rules, but looking up anything else, I know the exact chapter, I know exactly where to go, and when I read it, it makes perfect sense to me. So whereas going through chapter 3 and trying to get my head around all of that again was so hard, chapter 4 for me was just a breath of fresh air. So like I said, one of the things you need to do to learn Sanskrit grammar is to learn English grammar. For that, out of Maurer, I found a wonderful essay that I'm going to put up called Rattling the Bones of Grammar, in which he explains to you a lot of English grammar and the Sanskrit equivalents in a short, like 2 or 3 pages. It's nice. It's dense, fussy kind of grammar language, but it'll make you suddenly go, oh, wait, all that stuff in Sanskrit that's bewildering, I got that in English. And then it seems a little less weird. Because this language, Sanskrit, is going to become your own language, your very own language. You won't speak it like you speak English or read it like you read English. You'll read it in a different way. But if you've learned other languages, you know you read every language differently. Learning Sanskrit will help you think about all language and think about thinking. You're going to learn about how your brain works memorizing. You're going to learn about how language works. You're going to become a significantly more precise and better writer. I remember realizing this in my first couple of years of Sanskrit, and I was all excited telling somebody to party. It's amazing. Sanskrit, it changes the way your brain works, and you can write better and think clearer after studying it. And then this woman broke down sobbing because she dropped out of she'd taken first year Sanskrit, which for us was the entirety of Goldman, and then was required to take second year and found a way to get out of it because she just hated Goldman so much. So she would never have the experience I'm talking about. All right, so today we're looking at verbs. Now, what's the difference between a verb and a noun? Now, they're similar to English. Verbs are actions and nouns are nominal. They're things, they're stuff. They're also concepts. The best way to remember this is that verbs are conjugated. Now, we just conjugated something. We haven't got to declining, but if you've ever studied German or Greek or Latin, you'll know about how declination works. That means you take a word and you put a specific ending on the end of that word. Now, those endings are equivalent to our preposition. What do I mean by a preposition? Example, think of the word the puppy. On the puppy, under the puppy, over the puppy, with the puppy, through the puppy, in the puppy. Those are prepositions. Preposition. Why? Because it goes before the word. In the puppy, over the puppy, around the puppy, to the puppy. All those are before the puppy. In Sanskrit, they have they have these inflections on your declination, these endings that are like postposition. It's like your postposition is coded in the word and it's at the end. Linguistically, this is called a leftward branching language because I have my farthest right word and all the words that come to the left of it, meaning is construed that way, which is why often in Sanskrit, you'll find yourself reading backward. English is rightward branching. So I go to the store. To, preposition, article, the, store, location, direct object. Now, one of the reasons to study Goldman, you might ask why we don't abandon this over other things. One, Goldman is your lineage. One of my Sanskrit teachers is a personal student of Robert Goldman. So Goldman is my lineage. It goes Goldman, Vesna, me, you. And for Ben, it's Levitt, it's Goldman, I believe it's Goldman, Levitt, then Ben, then you. So Goldman is your lineage. This is your parampara, your lineage, or this before that. Also, Goldman is a bonding experience. You will later in your career come across somebody at a yoga school with an MA in yoga studies, and you'll go, fucking Goldman, and they'll go, fucking Goldman. And then boom, you're together, you bond. You have a core experience of suffering under Goldman. So like I was saying before at the beginning of class, you need to take notes on what I'm saying. It's good to look at the PowerPoints, but you also need to take notes and become your own tutor. So you notice when I had like this, the Sanskrit syllabaries, like the Araniti, the Sandhi grid, or this external overview of Sandhi. Those are like crib sheets. They're little codes and whatnot. It's good to use other people's, but you should make your own. So using Sandhi, for example, you'd write out the Sanskrit rules in your own symbol system. So IS/IH plus V, that's voice to me, equals IR. Okay. Sa, that's an ending sa with an awagraha equals that little line at the top or that little funky little awagraha thing. Ending nasal na plus non-voiced becomes masculine plus the homoorganic sibilant. So I just write sibilant plus the non-voiced. There I'm writing my own little codes. Sometimes it helps to write these in Devanagari, or as I'll just say Devanagari. Other times I really like to put like the exact words or exact letters in Devanagari, and then I'll write directions in English. So I do a code. You should make your own lists or tables. So you look up stuff in Goldman. However, it really helps, like I was saying, if you get your own like hardback essay book, and write out the tables on yourself in an order that works for you. And honestly, the key there is you can write it out in codes. You can write it out in codes, and you can write it out in colors, and you can get it in a way that you're reading your own handwriting. Sometimes that really helps. Flashcards help a lot of people. I've used flashcards in a lot of languages I've learned, and I realized they don't help me. So I think I told you, Michael Jerryson and I had a game where we'd have flashcards with Sunday rules, and when we'd run into each other on campus, we'd pull them out, and the one would have to read it, break it, and explain the rule. He got really good at it. It never really clicked for me, but I definitely used vocab words on flashcards for learning Sanskrit. There's a particularly weird story where I was at a bar in California, and I had all these note cards out because I think I was studying for like a 4-chapter midterm for Sanskrit. And I went to the bathroom and I came back, and there was a guy who didn't speak a lot of English and was clearly like a road crew guy. And I tried to summon in my best Spanish, "Hey, that's my seat." But he just like had skewed his like the note cards like that and was sitting like this, just exhausted, holding a beer. And then finally I'm just like, okay, just let me get this stuff away. I don't need you to kick my ass right now because I'm a Sanskrit guy with note cards in a bar, but that's how I roll. Okay. Here we go. Goldman starts out in typical Goldman, but I will translate it for you. There are 3 parts of speech in Sanskrit: Tidanta, Subanta, and Avyaya Pada. They're treated differently. So what's our first one? Tinanta. Remember, if you say, what's the finite verb to a pundit, they'll go, what are you talking about? This is how I remember verbs. Verbs are directly derived from the Sanskrit roots. Vad, bush, han, or the one I keep bringing up, yuj, is a Sanskrit root. Those are called dhatus. Verbs are action words. How can you tell them from different words in a sentence? Well, the verbs are conjugated according to the person, the number, the mode, and the voice. So the person, first person, second. The number, single, dual, plural. The mode, that will be indicative, like what we've been looking at today, descriptive, or it will be future or causative or whatnot. Finally, a voice, atmanepada, and parasmapada. Don't worry about that. The thing to remember is that every sentence has a verb. It might not have any nouns, but it will have a verb. And sometimes you'll look at a sentence and the verb is implied, but you'll get the hang of that, especially the verb us, to be, is implied. So if I wanted to say Rama is king, I could just write Rama king, Ramo Nripo, Nripaha. All right, so that's Pinanta, finite verbs. When you read a sentence, the first thing you do is you find the verb. You're gonna hear me say this a bunch of times, and then you're gonna see, okay, that's dual, and it's in the second person. That means I know my subject is going to be dual, and it's gonna be a you. If it's plural, and it's what Sanskrit calls the first person, that would be they eat. Then I'm looking at the word eat, and I'm gonna go and look in the rest of my sentence for a they. Now, the next one, nominal items, subanta. These are noun type words. So they're words that are nouns, but here's the trick. Sometimes you'll have adjectives or modifiers for the nouns. Both of them will be declined in the same way. So if Rama, nominative, subject, goes to the forest, Ramo vanam gachati. If he goes to the terrifying forest, it will be Rama Raudram. Remember Rudra from the root to whale, Rud to whale, Rudra, the crying Shiva, Raudra, terrifying is an adjective. So Ramo Raudram Vanam Gachati. So if you see words in the same declension, then you'll know they're connected in some way. What are our nominal items? You have nouns, person, place, or thing. Pronouns, words that stand in for a noun. a noun. She, he, it, those, they, one, the other. Adjectives that describe a noun, and participles, which is an action that is used to come before the finite noun, or it's something that nuances the finite noun, but it will be declined to fit with the other main nouns. So here, noun, the forest, pronoun, it is the forest. Adjective, beautiful, the beautiful forest. Running, as in water. If you were looking at water, udakam, and then I put gamanam attached to it, udakam gamanam, same entry. Gamanam means running or moving water. All right, finally, these are the best ones. Adverbs, avyayapada. They don't change. They're like frozen in one form or another. They'll have like, some of them are frozen in the accusative with a little ma, some are frozen in the ablative with a ta. Don't worry about that. The thing to know about an adverb is it never changes. It's just in there. The only time it changes is when there's a sandhi. These nuance the verb. They give a little more flavoring to the verb. So if you'll notice, I'm giving you words like finite verb, nominal item, adverb, and tinanta, subanta, avyayapada. One, that's so you can speak to pundits at some point. Two, finite verb, nominal form, noun, pronoun, adjective, adverb. Those give you the ability to talk to people who have studied other languages, to study with Westerners across disciplines, across languages. So grammar, in fact, becomes a lingua franca. I can say, a noun dative agreement, and someone in Greek will know exactly what I mean. It's a way to describe language. All right. Don't panic. Don't panic. It's Sanskrit class. Everybody's in the same place. Y'all may have a sense that some people were had some chanting experiences, but when we got to Sandhi, that's it. Everybody was in the same place. Nobody came in with Sandhi knowing it. Everybody was unclear and it didn't make any sense. And for the vast majority of all humans who learn Sanskrit, you will understand the contents of chapter 4 very, very well, right around the time we get to chapter 6. If you feel that, that's a good thing. This is one of the biggest shifts in learning Sanskrit. You learn from just reading a script, reading a set of symbols, and then manipulating a set of symbols. Now you're going to actually be reading. By the end of this chapter, you'll be able to look at the subject, the verb, and the object and read a sentence. You remember I got really excited when Atlas was able to read a sentence that we did Sandhi with, and his head exploded, but he didn't. So the thing here is that instead of learning abstract rules, you're actually going to have meaningful sentences that you will translate and understand and read. For some of you, this will be much harder. For some of you, this will be much easier. It's okay. Follow your own process. Everything is building. Everything we learn in chapter 4 will be practiced in chapter 5. You're always learning. And really, honestly, I'm more interested in you bumbling around in chapter 6, but really understanding 5 and 4 than just being really good at chapter 6 right off the bat. Okay, today's lesson. Finite verbs. The first thing when you read a Sanskrit sentence is you look for a verb. It's required in every sentence. But the word themselves, once conjugated, can be a whole unit. So if I say jagama, if I say gachati, gachati means he goes. Ramo vanam gachati. My whole sentence, I could just write gachati. And someone would know it means he goes. They would supply the he. But you can't have a sentence that just you can have the word gachati, he goes. But Ramo vanam, with no gachati, just Ramo vanam, that's Rama forest. No meaning. So there is always a verb. So you find the verb first, and that will tell you the number of the subject. So you're already narrowing down the words that you're going to be looking to translate. A subject can be implied, like I was saying. So it could just say vanam gachati, and you'd know he goes to the forest. But the verb or a verbal form is always found. These are action words. Now, I said this before, I'm going to say it again. The way to tell the difference between a noun and a verb at its most basic is function. It's declined according to person, number, tense, mode, and voice. Nouns will be declined as number, gender, and case or declension, so that preposition type thing. Now, all Sanskrit verbs are derived from roots or dhatu's. I've been teaching you these the whole time. You just haven't realized it. Like huge. There's about 1,000 of them. I mean, there's more like 5,000 to 10,000 of them, but there's about 1,000 common ones. Once you get a good like 300 or 400 down, you can start actually really reading Sanskrit. And the thing you don't realize is I'd venture all of you have probably about 10 that you already have heard enough. You sort of know. We'll get there. A verb is called a kriya pada. Kriya means an action. Pada means a foot. No, a word. No, a foot. No, a word. A pada is a foot or a word. Kriya pada is a doing word. All right. Now, let's take a look at Rupal and what she says about verbs in English versus Sanskrit. First off, she says that there's no continuous form in Sanskrit. So in English, you have I am running. Sanskrit just says I run. Or could even say I running, but there's no I am running. It would just be, so it's just in the present. I run. Generally, for the most part, verbs are past, present, future, though there's some nuance there. We're studying today indicative verbs. That studies things as they are. Now, a non-indicative verb would be the subjunctive, the optative, and the imperative. These types of verbs, and I'm going to explain them as we get to them a little bit further. Don't worry, just put that in your head. Describe things as they could be or should be. So I go from he runs to the forest to you run to the forest, or he should run to the forest. Now, we have active voice and passive voice in English. You've probably had teachers your whole life tell you to not write in passive voice. So I hit the dog, active voice. The dog was hit by me, passive voice. So in chapter 9, we're going to get to that. So you don't even have to worry about it. We're not even getting to that this semester. Verbs will have some of these nuances, like a causative or a derivative. I cause the man to kick the dog. Or desiderative, the man desires to kick the dog. These are whole ways of conjugating. But that's okay, because we're not going to worry about them right now. We're only going to look at finite indicative verbs. These different non-finite verbs like the infinitive, participle, the absolutive, what they call the gerund or the gerundive, they come later. And we're going to learn them one at a time, slowly and steadily. And by 2 chapters after each chapter, you'll really understand them. Now, when you're looking at a verb in a sentence makes a complete thought. So here I have some verbs conjugated. Now, you have not learned how to conjugate them yet, so I'll talk you through them. Pashyamaha, present tense. We see, so that's, remember, maha and our tenses that we chanted at the beginning. So pashyamaha, present tense, to see, Sanskrit root, pash. Hanyate, that's atmanepada, but it's in the present for he, she, or it, but there's a ya there, which means it's actually passive. Hun, to slay. Chajate, this is optative. This is a non-finite verb. I just want you to see the different morphology. We'll understand them later. When you look at tyajate, look and see that you can see the tyaj. Look at the hun, see the hun. Look at the push, see the push. All the verbs are derived from the roots. Shindanti, to cut, from the root shid. They cut in the present tense. Karishyati, kri. Wait, that's Indo-European. You've heard Dr. Ulrich yell and scream about that. To create or to make. Karishyati. Bu, to be. Imperative. Bhavatu. Oh, wait, we saw that before. We had jayatu and bhavatu. Okay, I know that root. Let it be. Jagama. This is a perfect. It's not an aorist. So he or she went. But from gum, you can see the gum here. Why is there a jaw there? We'll get to that. Finally, uspi, from the root us, or I am. Now, I'm going to really stress you learn these roots and identify them every time you translate a word. Why? Here is the first page of your homework glossary for this chapter. If you look over here, you'll see the word agachati. Well, I don't even know how to look that up. Oh, it's gachati. Oh, gum agachati. Okay, I got it. All right, iti. Oh, that's an indeclinable. That's one of those words that doesn't change and it modifies other words. Ekada, once. Oh, same thing. Another indeclinable. Well, what about a noun? Here's one, griham, house. It has a ma ending, so it's in the neuter. So in order to look up words, like you see this word anubhavati, if you're looking up in a Sanskrit dictionary, you wouldn't look anubhavati. You would have to look up anu plus bu. How do you know that it's bu? Because it's bhavati, and you know that all bhavatis arrive from bu. Just like you know gachati, all gachatis derive from or from gum. And what are these prefixes here? We'll get to those in a minute. But you put the prefix on there to nuance the verb even further. Finally, karoti. Oh, we know karoti, that's kri. But you can't look up karoti. You might get the word kara, and it'll tell you to look up the word kri. So you have to know these roots in order, indeed, to look up words. Don't panic. This is fine. It's all going to be fine. You're going to get this. It feels crazy. Tattoo it on your hand. Don't panic. You got
I have it on my arm right here.
Do you
I don't know if
already?
you can see it or not, but
I can't because I do it. Show me later. I want to see that. That's great. Okay. Now, we're moving right along, y'all. When we look at English, we say English has the first person, and we say that's I. English has the second person, that's you. English has a third person, he, she, or it. So, I speak, you speak, he, she, or it speaks. Sanskrit flips it around, and it's interesting that it flips it around. The first person, the pratama purusha, purusha just means person. Pratama means first. The first person is he, she, or it. The first person is other. The first person, the absolute first person you should be looking for is yourself, as other people. First person you look to is others. Madhyama purusha, second person, that's the same, you. But the uttama person, the uttama purusha, the last person, only there is the I. So think about the difference in the cultures when the first person is considered the extreme other, as opposed to the first person being I. And if you may remember, we have here, vad, paraismapada, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha. Once again, pratama. He, she, or it speaks. Vadati. Vadataha. That's it in the dual. So those two or the two speak. Vadata. Vadanti. Bahu, meaning many. Remember Bahu Udaka? Or Bahu Odaka? Oh, Bahu Odaka would be Bahodaka. Now what did we have? We had Naudaka. But bahu udika, u plus u is long u. Bahudika means a ton of water, a lot, many. Vadasi, you speak. Vadataha, you too speak. Vadata, no visarga. Vadata, those two, all them to speak. Uttama, first or the third person, the last person. It's easier for me to remember last instead of first. Vadami, I speak. Vadavaha, we, you and I speak. Vadamaha, all us speak. So we also have, so here we looked at person. Here we're looking at number. Remember, these are conjugated by person. Verbs are conjugated by person. So the first person, the middle person, or the last person, but they're also by number. Here you have single, dual, and plural. Ekavachana means single. Vachana, speech. Eka, one speech. Eka, vachana. Eka, like one. Dvi, two. Dual, you know that word, that's Indo-European. Dvivachana, speaking as two. Bahu vachana, the same, speaking as many. Notice how much quicker you're reading the Devanagari. That's because you did those practice things and you're getting better, whether you realize it or not, and you still feel slow as molasses. I watch your handwriting improve and your speed improve. I get to see that. Unfortunately, you don't. Here, suka means parrot. Suko vadati. Uh-oh. Somebody answer my question. Is va voiced?
Where are you looking and what?
Suko vadati. Is va voiced?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So then why is that? So what is this actually? Would I look it up suko in the dictionary?
Sukaha.
Excellent. Varataha, the two parrots. Shuko. Sorry, not suko, shuko. I'm sorry. Shukao. Duals are very often. You haven't learned why these new nouns are this ending yet, but you will this chapter. Shukao, two parrots. Vadataha. Shuka, many parrots. Bahu, shuka. Vadanti. Shuka, vadanti. Is that shukas, vadanti? Yes or no?
Sorry, I was writing.
You're good.
What was the questions?
Is it, do I look up Shuka Vedanti or has some Sandhi happened here? Remember, Ralava is voiced. So that means it's Shukas, actually. That's not an error. That's how this works in a sentence. So you don't combine Shuka and Vedanti because it was actually Shukas and the sus dropped. That's why you don't join those nouns, or that noun and that verb. All right. So, shuko vadati, shukao vadataha, shuka vadanti. So, shukas vadati, shukao vadataha, shukaha vadanti. See? You're learning all this.
So was I incorrect when I said shukaha?
For shuko,
Yeah, you said like what has that been?
it's short A visarga or short A and a sa. And this is long A and a visarga or long A and a sa.
So how do you tell the difference?
Between what?
Like I thought it was shukaha.
This would be a long A with a visarga. This would be a short A with a visarga. You tell it's O, lets you know that because this was voiced, that it replaced, that O replaced has a regular with a visarga. Both of these have visargas dropped from Sunday because there's a voiced initial.
So now I'm confused because you're saying that it is Visarga, but then you were saying a moment ago that it ends in S. That's why I'm
Remember
getting
that
confused here.
visarga is S. It's an S with no syllable on it. That's 100%. Everybody get that in your head. Anytime you see a visarga, that is effectively like if you were looking it up, its natural form would be short with an S at the end of it. When
So
it
yes,
comes
it
into a
would be
word, the
incorrect for me to
visarga
say
either
that it was
remains
Shukaha.
or drops depending on the context. So yes,
Okay, so it's incorrect to say Shukaha. It's correct to say Shukas.
no, it's shuko vadati. However, it is shukas vadati, but you would not say shukas. You could say shuko.
No, I'm not talking about in these contexts. I'm talking about the actual word that you would find like in the dictionary, just the basic what the name is for a parrot.
Wait till the next class and I'll explain exactly why that is. But yeah, I know what you're saying now. The word is shuka, but you're going to memorize it, shukas. You're going to memorize it in the nominative singular because memorizing it that way will tell you whether it is feminine, masculine, or neuter.
Thank you. That's actually very helpful that you just gave that explanation. I appreciate it.
Sorry if it took me a roundabout way to get there. Yeah, we're going to get to that, and we're going to actually talk about why it's best to memorize in that way. And Sanskrit dictionaries are different from English dictionaries. Right off the bat, they're in a completely different order. The order of the syllables start with and end with ha. It goes all the way from the beginning to the end in the Sanskrit alphabet. So yes, what we're looking at here is different ways of, this is masculine, shuko, masculine nominative. This is masculine dual nominative. This is plural masculine nominative. So what you would memorize it as is shukas. And then when you see shukas vadati, you go, oh, va is voiced, so I write it shuko. But if I was looking it up in the dictionary, I would look it up depending on I would look it up as shukas or shuka. However, if it was vanam, never mind. I'm going too far. Never mind. That's too far. We'll get there. Okay. So what about tense? Tense is the time when something happens. Tense in English is past, present, or future. Here, Sanskrit gives you words again that are kind of great. Bhuta kala. Kala means time. Kalaratri. Kalagni. Kalagni, the fire of time. Kala, time. Bhuta, we'll learn later, just means a thing in the past. Bhuta can also mean a ghost. Vartmana kala. Kala means time. Vartmana means present. We'll get into that later. Bhavishyat kala. Kala means time. Bhavishyat is the future for to be. So there's a lot of nuance in Sanskrit verbs, a lot more than in English. But once you can kind of think in the Sanskrit terminology, it gets a little clearer. Now, we're not going to learn the past and the present and the future all today. Today, we're just doing the present. Only the present, only the indicative. The present that reports. The present that explains. The present that looks out and says, Ramo vanam gachati. Rama goes to the forest. The structure of Goldman is you're going to learn new verb forms and then new noun forms, and they'll kind of alternate back and forth. In this chapter, you're going to learn new verb forms and new noun forms. What about word order? I broached this a little bit, and you've seen when I translate stuff. Sanskrit doesn't have word order. You tell what a word means. Like if I say Rama goes to the forest, the first thing I do is I think gachati. Okay, gachati is singular. So that means I'm going to find a nominative, Rama. That's my main noun. Then I'm going to see vanam. That's in the accusative. So that means Rama goes to the forest. But what does it really say? Rama, forest, go. Well, at least that's in the sequence of order. So English has subject, verb, object. Rama goes to the forest, or I go to Chicago. Sanskrit is more like subject, object, verb, which is the same way most Indian languages are, like Hindi is. So that's subject, object, verb. I, Chicago, go. Or maybe even I to Chicago, go. Subject, object, verb. What's the subject? Is the main noun, the actor, the doer of the sentence. What's an object? That is the thing that the verb changes, that the verb affects. So subject, object, verb is the action. Subject Rama, object forest, verb go. You don't have punctuation. You just have those little up and down lines that are called dundas, or little staffs. Sometimes contemporary editors, like you saw in some of our examples, will actually put in English punctuation, but it's never found in the original. So, speak like Yoda, you must. When 900 years old you reach, talk as good you will not. Notice, speak like Yoda, you must. There we have verb, subject, then a nuance on the verb. It's all over the place. When 900 years old you reach, there's one clause or unit. Talk as good, you will not. You would say, you will, when you reach 900 years old, not when 900 years old you reach, talk as good, you will not. You will not talk as good. You're doing Yoda speech. And Yoda, in fact, in Sanskrit means warrior, from the root yud, to do battle. Okay. We're moving right along. We're making great time. We're going to get done early, hopefully. Here comes some examples. From now on, you're going to be able to read in a proper, meaningful, meaning-rich sentence everything we read from here on out. You'll be able to figure it out, even if you have to puzzle for it. It won't be random sounds that mean nothing, like they did in Sunday. There are no more rules that are formulas in the way, like plus oo equals o. There are no more rules that you will not be able to directly apply to words you know. For some, this is easy. For some, this is hard. In fact, what I expect to see is that every chapter, one group of people will do really well, and the other group of people will do not so well. And those will switch around quite a bit. It's just kind of weird. That's how Sanskrit is. So when I go over the examples, try to internalize them and write down the translation, but they're all found in Goldman. And then what I really want you to do is go back and practice, read over Goldman once, and then read the example over and over again and read them out loud until they start to have semantic value. The other thing I want you to do, like our Vadati, Vadata, Vadanti, I want you to be chanting the tables and the charts. So here we have a straight up first set of examples. And what are we going to have from the right off the bat? Ramo Vanam Gachati, most beautiful words in the Sanskrit language. And we know that if the Sandhi was removed, that would say Ramas, or it would say Ramaha, Vanam Gachati. Ramo Vanam Agachat. Notice Agachat is connected to Vanam. Ma did not become Anuswara here for rules we're going to learn because it wasn't in a final position. Vanam Agachat. We'll learn about this in time. That's in the past or the imperfect. Here, again, we have the same Sandhi. Ramaha plus va equals o. Ramo Vanam Gamishyati. This is in the Bhavishyata Kala. Kala means time. Bhavishyata, future. You'll notice Ishya. That little sound, Ishya, is inserted there. That tells you it's in the future. Rama, to the forest, will go. Rama will go to the forest. Ramo Vanam Gamishyati. If these verbs don't have immediate value to you, that makes sense. Gachati is the only one you've even gotten close to knowing yet. But what we're doing is we're showing you the possibilities of Sanskrit, so you're warmed up when we get there. Finally, this is kind of an important one. Vanam Jagameti vakshati. Here we have a sandhi. Jagama plus iti equals jagameti. What is this word iti? Iti will become your friend. It's like a conjugation mark. When somebody puts the word iti done, everything after it going left, once again, leftward branching language will be in a quotation. Vakshati, he will speak. Now, if you see an iti and then a verb that's like vach, or to speak, or bush, bashyeti, or bashyete, he will speak. And what will he speak? Everything that comes to the left of iti. There, vanam jagama. Jagama means he went to the forest. Notice there's no he. You can read vanam jagama, and you know he went to the forest. The he is implied. So he will, so forest, jagama, I went, or even forest went with the I implied. He will say, there's your quote. Just remember the et, it will come along. Ramo vanam gachati. So this is actually from Sita Sings the Blues, which is a retelling of the Ramayana that I think is absolutely wonderful. Though unfortunately, I found out recently that Nina Paley, who did the animation on it, has started backing a lot of TERF type, trans exclusive, radical feminist types that I'd really like to knuckle under my ability for saying things that hurt people I love. So if you have some anti-venomous, anti-feminist, anti-trans rhetoric that you hold in your heart, I will warn you right now, don't bring it up to me. Hide that shit in your heart, because I might punch you, because I have people I love that much that the minute one says something like that, those are fighting words. And I will come at somebody unpleasantly. And if things come to blows, I will. Why? Because I don't like people dying. And it is up to me and everyone around who thinks like this to, when they find out even an artist that you think is great and you like their work, you can even continue using their work. But you tell people how much fucking sacks of shit they are and that they kill children effectively by their goddamn attitude and rhetoric. All right, so that's my soapbox. Anyway, so nuances. The actions of verb is found in a couple of ways. We have modes. Today we're studying the indicative, gachati. I'm just describing someone going somewhere. There's also the imperative, gachatu. I'm commanding someone, you go do that. Rama gachat, Rama, what would I say? Rama vanam gachatu. Why Rama? Because that's vocative. We'll learn that later. So you go to the forest. I'm making you go. Optative, it means it's prescribing. Like Rama, you should go to the forest. Again, we're not learning these now. We're just warming up. This optative third form is really hard for people in English because we don't have it well displayed in English. It's when something is imagined, wished for, something that's far often hard to attain. May Rama go to the forest? Rama should go to the forest. Rama might go to the forest. Injunctive is like the imperative in that it commands, but it does it lighter. Like, I know Rama ought to go to the forest. It's different than saying, Rama, go to the forest. So these are nuances. All right, here's an example of mode using our favorite sentence. And mind your sandhis here. Ramo vanam gachati. That would be a ma hanging out that becomes the accusative ma. Ramo vanam gachati. Rama goes to the forest. It's indicative. So indicative tells me it's describing something or narrating something. And the present means it's happening right now as we speak. Hey Rama, vanam gacha or vanam gacho. Notice here, hey plus Rama, there's nothing going on that changes here. With hey Rama, there's no sandhi because it's that injunctive. Rama vanam gachet, that's the optative. Rama should go to the forest. What I want you to see is gachati, gacha, gachet. all from the root gum. All right. Yes, we are going to finish just fine. Now, there is a distinction of voice. Voice is in two. You have parasmaipada, atmanepada. Parasmai means other. Pada means word. For the same person would be atmane, like atman, myself. Pada means word. This is important in Vedic. It is not important in our languages that we're studying. You'll look in the dictionary and you'll see that it'll have a little A after it or a little P after that, and that'll tell you how to translate it or how to conjugate it, whether it's vadati, vadataha, vadanti, vadasi, vadataha, vadata, vadami, vadavaha, vadamaha, paraismai pada. Bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashasete, bashadwe, bashase, bashavahe, bashamahe. That one's atmanepada. Bush. They both mean to speak. They have no semantic difference. Many words are ubaya pada. Ubaya means both, so it can be either. Don't panic. It's been some big shifts today. But the one core thing that I want you to remember is to chant these friggin' paradigms. Here is the overview. Each verb has three people, i.e., first, second, and third, or first, second, and last. Three numbers, singular, plural, and dual. 5 modes, don't worry about it. 4 tense systems, don't worry about it. And 2 voices, atmanepada, parasmaipada. That's a lot. That should freak you out. Keep calm. Don't panic. We will learn them one at a time, and you don't even need to have everything cold in every chapter. Some of these versions are more common than others. You're going to learn the present. We learned the present tense today, and we're going to go over it more in our next lesson. You need to learn these categories, and then you'll learn the nuances and the details as you go. Now, memorization. This is essential. What does sadhana mean? A sadhana is a discipline or a practice. You are going to have to establish a sadhana, a religious practice of memorizing. Now, you're going to jam these in your head. Vadati, vadata, vadanti. But in time, you stop having to look at charts. Your brain becomes the computer. Your brain is the chart. The other cool thing that happens is you stop having to look at something and go, all right, that's a verb. Vadati, vadata, vadanti, vadasi, vadase, vadata. You don't even have to do that. You're just like, oh, that's third indicative. I just know it all the time. That starts to happen more and more through practice. Your memory will improve by memorizing. The gods sacrifice the sacrifice by means of sacrifice, as the Vedas say. Practicing memorizing, your brain power to memorize will improve. Even if you're neurotypical like me, it's amazing the amount of stuff I've been able to memorize, considering how bad my memory and working memory is. One of the best tricks around that is to make up little songs and not necessarily to follow the exact way that a pundit would chant. So what we're doing is we're jamming these ideas and grammar concepts in your brain right now. And then you're going to practice them with every next chapter, with every next thing you learn. So when chanting, you don't have to just sit and get into Padmasana and get yourself all set up to chant. Do it actively. Recite these when you're walking. The minute you get vadati, vadata, vadanti, then it's like, okay, I'm cleaning the bathroom, vadati, vadata, vadanti. I'm going into the car, vadati, vadata, vadanti. I'm driving, vadati, vadata, vadanti. Just, if you got a free moment in your brain, put this stuff in there. You're building a neural network. Ben Williams tells a story about Jerry Larson. Now, I knew Jerry. I didn't get to study with him, but I met him a bunch of times. Really a brilliant Sanskritist, died a few years ago. He, every morning, woke up and would chant his verbal paradigms and then chant all the nominal paradigms. He had them fully memorized, but he just felt that was important to always keep it fresh. And it does make a big difference to return to chanting these even after you know them, because you start to slip with the rarer ones. And if you chant them in this way, you'll remember all the less common ones. This is like lifting weights or exercising or doing yoga. Consecutive days build strength. Consecutive days build skill. Make this a sadhana. Think about how you can read Devanagari now, and you couldn't before. You didn't get good at it by one day sitting down and reading Goldman for 3 hours. You got good at it by doing it and doing it every day. Your Devanagari is going to be damn near perfect at the end of this semester. And your Sandhi is going to be getting to that point soon because you're going to keep practicing it. So, in the present indicative, that's called the Vartmane Lat. There's these little lri sounds, and those are the codes for each tense. This one is lat, Vartmane Lat. These little codes called lat, and we'll come back to this a bunch, are shorthand to say whether something is in the past, the present, or the future, and the nuance. We learned the indicative today, and it's probably the most important, the most common. And when one studies language, the first thing they study is usually the present indicative. We remember that the indicative is a statement of fact. It indicates something, it reports something, it describes something. So, your ending is Varati Varataha Vadanti, Varasi Varataha Varata, Varami Varavaha Varamaha. Those are the patterns of the endings. Here's the Atmanepada. Bashate, bashate, bashante, bashase, bashate, bashadwe, bashase, or bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe. These you're gonna know. This is what I want you to practice. Get it in your head. Honestly, 10 minutes a day, twice a day, set a timer. So do 5 of each, 5 minutes of Varati Varataha Vadanti, Varasi Varataha Varata, Varami Varavaha Varamaha, Varati Varataha Vadanti, Varasi Varataha Varata, Varami Varavaha Varamaha, Varati Varataha Vadanti, Varasi Varataha Varata, Varami Varavaha Varamaha. Now, I learned these differently. Because I was dyslexic, I learned them up and down. So I memorized Varati Varasi Varami, Varata Varataha Varavaha, Vadanti Varata Vadamaha. You'll notice in those that the patterns come up a little quicker, but that's not the way Dr. Williams chants them, and I want to do them the same way that he will do them. So I'm kind of learning to chant these too, because I'm having to learn to chant them in a different manner, and that's good. Bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadwe, bashase, bashavahe, bashamahe, bashate, bashate, bashete, bashante, bashase, bashete, bashadwe, bashe, bashavahe, bashamahe. I would recommend the first thing you do is get out a sheet of paper and write these out just once. And instead of reading from the book, read from your own handwriting. That'll also code it in. All right, that's the end of the class. For next time, we're going to look at us, the verb to be, and we're going to conjugate it. And we're going to talk about how to use these nouns that we've been introduced to today. And we're going to start looking at nouns with cases and declension. For your homework, I want you to continue to study Goldman Chapter 4. However, by the end of the day today, I will have resources and selections from Killingly, Ruppel, and Maurer. I was up at 6 o'clock this morning, and I spent 2 hours probably more like an hour. I was doing some other things with Sanskrit, just digging through different Sanskrit grammars to see which ones had the most useful descriptions on the present tense. And these are the most. And what I'm going to do is I have electronic text. I'll pull those out and just get them up for you. I want you to chant the verbs twice per day, at least for 10 minutes. So it's 20 minutes a day. Do it. Get in the practice. And if you do it now, you'll be in a better place than when you have to learn 2 or 3 of these in a week. Start doing it now. I don't want to give you any more than 1 per class period. But if you don't really memorize them, we're going to get like 4 or 5 classes down in Sanskrit, and you'll be expected to know like 3 or 4 of these pretty well. And if you never learn the first one, you're not going to learn the second ones, and you're never going to be able to catch up. So you have to make it a daily practice. You have to make it a sadhana. And I mean, I would rather have you do it 2 times per day for 5 minutes than not do it all at all. I would rather you do it once a day for 5 minutes than nothing at all. So the amount that you put in is the amount you will get out, and you will get better at memorizing. For the Sunday quiz, remember, I'm going to pull directly from these 25. And I'll try, and I will look up all the grammar to make sure I don't screw anything up again. Practice using the Sunday grids like I showed you before, but really look at that external overview, which I put a link on today's webpage to as well. And what I'd like you to do on that one is look at the Sundays on the answer key, see what I've answered, see if I'm wrong, and then look them up on that external overview and make sure you can articulate it and say it out loud or write it in a little key in whatever way you want to write it. Because I'm going to give you the 3 examples. You're going to end it and I'm going to give you 3 examples in the Roman letters. You're going to write them in Devanagari, and then you're going to write out however you want what the Sundays are and what the rules are. Okay, that's it. Is Atticus going to show us his awesome tattoo now? While I hit pause.
Atticus, I'll take it.
Atticus, oh, I'm sorry. I